Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 today with Dallas and Michael. We are talking about cash is like tin food, companies are like a veggie garden. Dallas,
thanks, Michael.
Must say I love the title.
I often come up with a title, and sometimes I come up with a title, I can just see you looking at me thinking, oh no, he's going to torture me today about some obscure thing. And then other times I come up with a title and you read it and you go, I know exactly what you mean. I don't know how you've come up with that, but yes, I've got you. So
some of Dallas's titles really I see the title and I go, oh, this is going to require so much effort. Like I'm going to have to reach down into There's very
philosophical.
The areas of your brain that have just been like the light's been switched out for a while, and oh, now I'm gonna have to switch the light on in this area and actually really think. And I'm going to be worn out. I'm going to be worn out at the end of this podcast. But today's topic, you
intuitively get it.
I think I know where you're heading. So shut up and let you go.
Let me explain. So where this came from, there's a TV show, and I think I might have talked about it before, called Doomsday Preppers. And I don't actually watch TV, but same thing. I heard of the concept and thought, what a fascinating thing. So there's all these Doomsday Preppers. It's like a known thing where they are all preparing for the apocalypse, basically. And it's really interesting, the TV show, because they go, here's, it's all set in America. Here's Steve. He lives in the backwoods of Maine. His big fear is, it'll be, some bizarre thing that there'll be an invasion from Canada or something like that. Something in some of these are sort of bizarre where you go. But what's really interesting is so these people have these fears that whether they've misguided or, founded or not is a separate issue. But so they've got these fears of the apocalypse and everything going wrong, of doomsday coming. And so they're preparing for that. And I saw a couple of these different things. And what was interesting to me is there was two sort of separate schools of thought, and the one that makes more sense to me, and the only one that makes sort of any sense to me, is these people who what they then do is they basically they move to a farm that they have a long-term sustainable way to provide their own needs. So you'll see this guy who's living in the backwoods, and he's got he'll have a herd of goats, and he'll have a greenhouse where he grows all his vegetables, and he'll have a well where he can get access to fresh water, and he'll have all these sorts of things, and that intuitively makes sense to me, because you're basically going, if they're making a bet that the world's coming to an end as we know it, it's all going to be like Mad Max. You would want to be able to not just have fresh water next week and have fresh food next week. You want to be able to set things up in a way where you've got that for the rest of your life and your kids' life and in perpetuity. There's some others that go, I think the world's going to end because of a nuclear war that escalates and blah, blah, blah. And so their response is, I'm going to build a bunker, or I'm going to do whatever, or and I'm going to fill it with canned food. And there's these people that've got, like, it's actually, you got to look at it. It's hilarious because they've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, building basically storage sites for this tinned food. The tinned food that it's going to last for 30 years or whatever it is, and they've got like basically the whole net worth of their life tied up in this tinned food. And I just remember watching it, thinking it's such a for some people that obviously makes sense to them, but to me it's a very flawed way to try and prep for doomsday. If you think that the world is ending and you're reliant on things from the current world, basically, tinned food or things like that, it doesn't. It's a very short-term focus. It's a very short-term answer to a very long-term problem, which is society's going to melt down. We're not going to have access to tinned food ever again. So I'll store a heap of tinned food versus society's going to melt down. I'm not going to have any access to food. So I'm going to set up my home or my farm in a way where I can grow food and I can provide for myself and my family, basically forever and a day, and basically restart civilization. And so those are the two categories of doomsday prepper. And I think that's why you sort of know where I've gone with this is that's exactly the categories of people that we see and how they save for retirement. So one category of people will go, I need $50,000 a year for X amount of years. Therefore, I need that many dollars worth of cash, and they're sort of seeing it as a stockpile of tin food, where they go, right, I'm going to eat 3 tins of food every day for the next 5,000 days. Therefore, I need 15,000 tins of food. It's I can understand the logic and I can understand the reasoning. It's flawed for a number of reasons. It doesn't tend to work is the main one. So like if you're thinking I'm getting set up for retirement, what I need to do is I need to build up enough in cash so that when that day comes when I'm retired, I can just drain the bank account slowly over time and hopefully I'll pass away before I run out. There's a couple of issues with that. Is number one, you've got to get an astronomical amount of money together. Number two, and this is the big silent one, is inflation. So even if you think you're going to spend 50 grand in your first year of retirement and you think I'll probably live for 30 years, so I'll get $1.5 million in cash and that'll be enough, and I'll as long as I pass away before 30 years is up, I'll have enough. You're not accounting for the fact that things are going to get more expensive over time. And so the analogy that I would use there is for these people who are coming up with tinned food, they've got, it's them and maybe their kids, and they've got enough food for them and their kids to eat, and that's it. And so they're sort of hoping that there's nowhere else in civilization. They don't find anyone else who's survived this apocalypse, and that they're just going to run this thing into the ground and they're going to die in 40 years' time versus now.
The way that I think of that one is that inflation is a phenomenon that erodes your purchasing power over time.
Yeah.
So with tin food, you might have counted out, but time is going to erode some of those tins.
That's actually a good point, yeah. So the nutrients that you thought you had in that tin food 30 years on.
Yeah, it's going to be eroded for some of them. And that's sort of the way that inflation works.
That's probably a better analogy in this very torched, winding one. But yeah, you're right.
When you've been speaking the whole time, for me, what resonates with me here is that tin food is not renewable. Yep. So it's finite.
Yeah.
So I eat, whatever tins there are, they're gone forever.
Yep.
Now, the veggie garden is
I'm harvesting renewable energy from the sun.
If done correctly, you can have fresh veggies into perpetuity.
Yep.
What I also take out of this is you need both. So you need if you're running this farm, you want a little bit of tin food.
Yep.
And but you want most of your efforts to be put into the productive enterprise of actually growing fresh veggies and
having your herd of goats
and things like that. So you want most of your energy to go into that, and you want most of your wealth and resources to be in that.
Yep. But like you say,
because it's renewable. Yes. Because it's renewable.
Yeah.
Every now and again, what happens is a drought comes along. Yep. So for that particular year or that particular harvest season, the drought means that we don't get the yield.
Yeah.
In an extreme, we don't get any yield in that particular year. What we need to be able to do is dip back into the pantry.
Yeah.
Or the cave and eat some of that tinned food. So that's where I think of cash very, very similarly. It's like it's amazing if you're running a small little farm like this.
Yeah.
Then think of your money like that. You want to have about the level of cash that you'd have in the cupboard in tinned food.
That's right.
And you'd want to have about the level of your resources your money in things that are going to generate a return or a yield into perpetuity. Because done correctly,
yes,
I have the majority of my money in the good quality companies of Australia and the world, that pays me enough to be able to eat every single year and to live off every single year without actually depleting the farm, without depleting the companies, without selling out of those companies. There are times. There are times when there's a drought, a market downturn. I have to dip back into that cash. Now that cash again is that's something. It's a depletable asset. So you know that you're never going to get the interest that you need off the cash. It's something that's going to deplete over time and needs to be topped up. In that situation.
That's exactly the thought process I had watching the show, and I think that you touch on a point there with the thinking of your companies that you, as we've outlined, most people need the majority of their retirement savings invested in high quality companies that are going to, and that's, I think this touches on the point here, is people leading up to retirement don't take into account the fact that those companies they make profits every year. And you receive dividends every year. You receive a share of those profits. I think what happens is, especially while we're accumulating for retirement, we think of it as a thing that's for the future, which it is. But the whole point of this is that it's not just, if you were looking at just price movement, you would be going, okay, well, I don't have time to worry about how big my veggie garden is going to be in 30 years' time because I need to eat next year. The point that we're sort of, that I think we're touching on here is you want enough in your veggie garden so that you are able to, you can harvest from that every year. So the point of your companies is that in most years they will make profits, you will receive dividends. Now, separate to that, their share price may be up, down or sideways. That's kind of irrelevant to the fact that I just need enough veggies to eat each year. Now, as you touched on there, if there's a drought, if there's something comes through, bugs come through and eat all your veggies, you need some tinned food to get through those times. But the point of the veggie garden, the point of your companies in retirement is not to, it's not to grow over the whole 30 years. It's to provide you that sustainable, renewable food source every year throughout retirement with a bit of assistance from your tinned food in the pantry. And that's how we sort of think of it. So, again, to continue a tortured analogy here, it's not these doomsday preppers. They're not planting trees that are not going to, they're not planting stuff that's not going to develop for 30 years. They're not going to go and plant a stand of pine trees and go, well, in 30 years' time there'll be some wood for that, so that's really useful. They're planting things that they know that there's going to be some variability in outcomes. I'm going to have good years and bad years, but I know that is the only way that I can sustainably continue to have a reliable food source over many years is to make that choice to put put the majority of my energy and my resources into something that is going to be more volatile, but it's going to be sustainable, it's going to be renewable, it's something that can continue on and that can compound over time. I can keep putting more energy and more resources into this farm and it will grow and develop in and of itself. Whereas if I'm just accumulating tinned food, not only is there a finite amount to how much I've accumulated there, but the tins that I bought 10 years ago, if the apocalypse doesn't come for 10 years, those tins that I bought 10 years ago are 10 years older. They're 10 years less good, and I think that's the point you touch on there with that. The nutritional value of the tinned food goes down over time. That's what inflation does. Is that if I'm accumulating cash for my retirement, not only do I need a lot more, but if I'm accumulating and it's 10 years out, the cash that I accumulate now is actually far less valuable in 10 years' time, and it's far less valuable in 30 years' time when I really need to eat it.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this thinking, what the heck are these two idiots talking about? I came onto this podcast to try and learn a bit about money and learn how I might retire. Think of this like reps. Think of this like training. Think of it like if this helps you at all to use that analogy to say, okay, if I was running a small farm, I'd probably have about 90% of my resources out there working for me, but subject to to droughts and things like that. I'd probably only have about 10% or less of my resources in. That's about the mix of food that you need on your plate. To use another metaphor. to what we see as our average client, what they need to be invested in.
Throughout
So need about, generally speaking,
again, this is
the
personal advice,
majority of their money needs to be in growth assets that go up or down, go up more than they go down, but that at times they go down sharply and hang around down there. They need the majority of their money and resources in that, and only a very little bit in the cash and fixed interest. So if that helps you think of it like that, then that's a good thing. And look, if it helps you think during the next downturn, why are we doing this? If this somehow you get this picture in your head of I know to get
a drought,
it's just a drought, then that's a good thing.
See, this is why, and Nicola won't be listening to this podcast at all, but my wife Nicola always, I've said it before, gives me a hard time about analogies and creating very long and tortured analogies. But thank you for giving me the pat on the back for this analogy. Hopefully it helps people out there, and if not, I don't know, I'll try another one next week. So.
Yeah, and if you need some help, of course, determining how much to put into the farm and how much to put in the pantry, certainly give us a holler at podcast@mo50.com.au.
Just to clarify, if you need actual help with farming, don't ring us at all. This is not a genuine farm thing. I had a veggie garden for about 1 week during COVID and everything died. So don't be ringing me about actual farming. But when it comes to your retirement planning, these are the kinds of the trade-offs and the decisions that we do help people make. So thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.